Sometimes basketball is a very simple game. It's about whether you can put the ball in the basket or not, and the Kings could not put the ball in the basket. And that's why they lost to the Sixers 117-104. They just couldn't make a wide open 3-point shot. 10 for 41 from three, mainly on open looks. They got so many good looks, shot 24.4%. The Sixers, they went 12 for 29. So they made two more threes than the Kings on 12 less attempts. Philly packed the paint. They tried to take Sabonis away because they were without really any big men. Even Yabusele was in foul trouble for the first half of this game. And they just decided whenever Sabonis gets the ball, when he puts it on the ground, they're going to swarm. Sabonis kicks out, and guys just didn't make shots. They limited Sabonis to 6 field goal attempts. And of course, there were other things that the Kings could have done better. But that's with every game. There are other things that the Kings could do better. But just with the shooting, the Kings win this game 95 times out of 100. And so that's obviously frustrating on one level, but then also, it's just unlucky, right? It's not really about how they played. It kind of brings me back to early season when this happened a lot, when they would play well and do what they needed to do to win the game, except for actually make the 3-point shots. Keon Ellis went 2 for 9 from 3 in this game. He missed a million wide open looks that he always makes as a 40+% 3-point shooter. And they were in key moments late in the third and the fourth quarter. And it was just unexpected. I just don't expect him to miss that many shots. Coming into this game, it was obviously a little interesting because you're coming into it with kind of this cloud looming over the Kings with the De'Aaron Fox situation. And, I don't want to talk about the Fox situation too much until something actually happens or until the trade deadline, because that's the nice thing about it. We have a nice date set, and then things have to happen by that date, and then we can talk about it. But I'll still probably talk about it a bit because I can't help myself. But for now, just trying to focus on the games at hand. And right away, the game started on such a bad note because the Kings came out and they're wearing blue and red. We're in Philadelphia. Why are you wearing blue and red? Who is in charge of this? I don't get it. Why are the Kings wearing blue and red in Philadelphia? Someone explain it to me. I'm chalking this loss up to that, to be honest. If you are a purple team that wears blue and red in the home arena of a team whose colors are blue and red, you deserve to lose the game. It's just so stupid. I don't get it. The only time that you should really wear these jerseys is when you're at home and you have the court to pair with it. But anyways, the Kings came out in this game really well. They started off with a Monk 3, but then the next 6 points were just all at the rim, living at the rim against this small 76ers team. There was really good cutting and movement, especially around Sabonis, and Sabonis ended up with a triple-double. He had 11 assists on the game. So the offense, it felt like it was in a flow. There were definitely some turnovers. The Kings did rack up 12 turnovers in this game, which isn't too many, but there was a lot in the first half, I think 7. But it all came from trying these interior passes and really trying to pass to make something happen. And so most of the passes led to easy looks inside. And so those types of turnovers, when you're trying to make something happen, are much easier to live with because, if they do get through, it's right at the basket and you're scoring. But I liked how the Kings came out and attacked, and you had Keegan going strong to the rim. And it still felt like sometimes he could have dunked it and he was going with these weird finishes, but they were going in. So it was okay. But it was just Sabonis dominating the interior, out rebounding this 76ers team, getting in the middle and drawing so much attention, hitting cutters. Monk was playing super well and he was knocking down his outside shots as well as getting to the rim and finishing. He had 12 points in the first quarter. And then on the defensive end, the Kings came out with the game plan of blitzing Tyrese Maxey. And that worked well to start with. Trying to get the ball out of Tyrese Maxey's hands, make others beat you, and make others finish at the rim. Kind of similar to what the Kings' adjustment was in the fourth quarter. It's stop fouling these guys at the rim. Just try to make them finish over you. And the Sixers weren't really finishing all that well. There was one play where Keegan tried to stand in and take a charge, And I feel like we've just been seeing that so much lately of Kings trying to take like unnecessary charges. Taking a charge, it's a good thing, but I feel like we're seeing the Kings try to take too many, especially Keegan, who's such a big guy and can affect shots at the rim. And Kelly Oubre was just coming down at him at a slow pace and from so far away. And if Keegan just, puts his hands up and puts his chest into him, Oubre's got nothing there. And so we've just seen that recently with the Kings trying to take too many of these kind of weak charges, and then they get called for blocks. But I think for the most part, defensively, what they were doing around the rim was really good. And because they were attacking hard on the offensive end, and especially Keegan was attacking hard, they got Gershon Yabusele into foul trouble. 2 quick fouls on him, and one was from Keegan attacking. And that also made the Sixers spend their challenge, which was nice because it was unsuccessful. And so an already small Sixers team just gets smaller. And like I said, the turnovers started racking up a bit, and Sabonis was turning it over inside a little bit. And I feel like right when Yabusele went out, the Kings got baited into like posting up Sabonis a bit. But I feel like they realized pretty quickly, like, don't get baited into just posting up every possession, because that just doesn't work, especially against these smaller teams. Against smaller teams, a lot of the times is when Sabonis has his lowest scoring output, because teams are going to send so many bodies at him. And that's really what happened in this game. So he got baited into some post-ups that ended in turnovers early, but then he figured it out, stopped going to the post-ups, just kept running the offense. And the Sixers, they went into a zone, and the best way to break a zone is just to hit a 3 on the wing. And that's immediately what Monk did. Keon hit a 3, Sabonis hit a 3. So the Kings were shooting well early on and immediately broke that zone just with shooting the 3 well. We saw Kevin Huerter come into the game because Doug McDermott was out with an illness, and maybe we would have seen it anyways, but Huerter came in, misses a couple 3s. The Sixers were clearly trying to target him and Trey Lyles. And you had Keon picking up 2 early fouls, which didn't help. Also had, there was just one random play in the first quarter where Sabonis, he pump fakes, gets Kelly Oubre in the air. Kelly Oubre falls on top of him, kind of to the side, like hits him in the shoulder on top of him. And Sabonis goes through it and lays it up, and somehow it wasn't a foul. And we've seen that a few times now where they won't call a foul when guys are like flying on top of Sabonis. It's very weird. Like a guy just fell on top of Sabonis and you're not calling a foul. But then Sabonis went out of the game in that first quarter. Kings had a nice little lead going. What was it, 7-8 points? I don't know exactly, but it was a nice lead. Then Sabonis goes out, and you have just this horrible lineup. I don't know why Alex Len played in this game, because the Sixers are small. You don't need Alex Len to guard anybody. And for the Kings to like send out Alex Len, try to go big, almost as if they're trying to take advantage of the small Sixers, that would be great if you had a big that could take advantage of smaller players. I mean, Sabonis can do it, right? He gets inside and he draws numbers and kicks it out. Len can't do that. Len should only really play if you are getting dominated by a big man and just need a body to go out there and bang with him. In this case, you're letting the Sixers off the hook. You're saying, here's a big guy that you don't have to guard. You can send all of the bodies at De'Aaron Fox, and on the offensive end, you can just space out on the perimeter and force Alex Len to chase around, because the Kings kept trying to blitz on defense, even with Alex Len in and with Tyrese Maxey out. So the Kings were blitzing Alex Len onto Reggie Jackson. That's not going to work. Like, Alex Len is not Sabonis. He can't blitz in the same way. Also, it's Reggie Jackson. So the Kings offense, it was just flowing so well, and then Sabonis goes out and it's stagnant, and they gave up 3 wide open looks defensively. They allow an offensive rebound on a free throw again, which just happens time after time. And it was with, Alex Len, Trey Lyles, those guys rebounding. And Kyle Lowry just gets in there. And I think the ball might have even bounced or it got really low to the ground before Lowry picked it up. That can't happen. So we don't need these Alex Len lineups at all. DeMar got it going a little bit. He scored a few points at the end of the first quarter, so the Kings could keep a lead of 2 points at the end of the first quarter. But those Alex Len moments, there's just no need, because even to start the second quarter, they kept Len in. And I mean, De'Aaron Fox is just having two guys guard him the entire time. He can't do anything. So it's all down to DeMar to just hit some middies. At one point on the broadcast, Katie was like, "Oh yeah, but, Fox, he hasn't been aggressive or something. He only has 4 shot attempts." I'm just like, yeah, because he's out there with Alex Len. He's being guarded by 2 players the entire time. So that needs to stop. These Alex Len lineups, that needs to stop. That was the Kings' biggest mistake in the first half. To start the second, though, Kings tried to throw a zone out there, but Eric Gordon, that guy's just like a one-man zone breaker because he can just shoot from so deep. And if he's making his shots, then you kind of have to come out of the zone. And he went 3 for 4 from 3. So it's tough to go zone because he just stands so far behind the line and drains these shots. And the Sixers, they started bullying us inside. And again, you have Alex Len in there as a rim protector, so you shouldn't get bullied inside. But he doesn't really offer much as a rim protector anymore. And our guards were just getting bullied physically, including Devin Carter, who's supposed to be, a physical guard. Also offensively, Fox made this really nice play at the start of the second quarter. He drives inside, kicks out to a wide open Devin Carter in the corner for 3, and Carter doesn't shoot it because his release is so slow that a Sixer can get all the way from practically the paint to contest him and not even allow him to get the shot off. So it's a problem. It's a really big problem with Devin Carter's offensive game. He has to change his shot mechanics. I don't see how he can be, a role player that can spot up and catch and shoot, but he can't really catch and shoot very much because he gets closed down so easily. At least Lyles came in and hit a midi to kind of bail us out of that possession. And Lyles did some really nice things. He was getting offensive rebounds. He had 3 of them. He had a nice cut and score. He took a big charge early in that second quarter. And then finally, Herter hits a midi, and I'm like, okay, the bench kind of getting going here. And then Herter misses a wide open 3. And I'm just like, never mind. Wide open 3 in transition. Every time Herter hits a shot, and mainly a 3, I'm like, is this it? Is he back? Can he give us something? Maybe just one game? And then no, he can't. But when Sabonis came back in, the Kings kept blitzing. And when they were blitzing Maxey, it kind of turned into them like going through the motions, and the Sixers were so prepared for it. That was the real problem. You start out the game blitzing, you can't just keep blitzing Maxey in the same way for the entire game. The Sixers just set up their offense, ready for the blitz. Here comes the screen. He gets blitzed. He immediately gets the ball out of his hands. They play 2-on-1 on the backside and get a good look every single time. But the Kings they didn't switch it up in the first half. They never did, and they kept getting killed by it the entire second quarter, and that's why they allowed 32 points in that second quarter. And eventually they did switch it up in the second half, and we'll get to that. But in the middle of that second quarter, you had Yabusele picking up another foul, so he had 3. He had to sit for the rest of the half. And the Kings, they had some nice plays. Like, they had some really good activity to win some balls back in the front court. Keegan got a dunk. Monk got some finishes. But also, there were a lot of missed opportunities. You had Malik missing 2 straight layups. And when you miss layups, especially in transition, like the first one was for Monk, then the Sixers are just running back the other way, so that hurt. Some other guys missed around the rim. They were just missing from deep as well. And so pretty much, we were missing around the rim. We were missing from 3. The Sixers figured out our blitz. The Alex Len minutes were horrible. And yet we were still up 2, and we come out of a timeout, and we play 4-on-5. So things were actually okay. I don't think we were playing at our best, but the offense was still flowing when Sabonis was in there. And then you play 4-on-5 for a possession. What was that? Keon wasn't in the game. I was just watching, coming out of this timeout, and I'm like, oh, the Kings are in a zone here. And I just keep looking and looking. I'm just like, where I must be missing something. Where's the 5th player? And they just were never there. And the Sixers score, and then Keon comes running back on the court, and it's a technical, and they get a free throw. It was just such just a weird moment. Down the stretch of that quarter, Monk had a nice and one. Keegan rebounded a free throw miss and then missed twice at the rim. So there are still some moments where Keegan's finishing isn't the best, or moments where you feel like he could go up a little stronger, but he's getting better. He is absolutely getting better. And I actually think those were his only 2 misses inside the entire game. So that's very encouraging. But Maxey got it going, and the Sixers, like I said, they figured out the blitz. Kings kept blitzing. Maxey hit some shots. Sixers went up 4 to end the second quarter. And so it's kind of a weird feeling at halftime where it felt like the Kings should be up, because if they just shot normally, they would be up. If they didn't turn the ball over, they'd be up. But also, it kind of felt okay to be down only 4 when you were turning the ball over, when you were missing, when the Sixers did figure out your defense. And so it felt okay. It felt like the Kings were going to figure it out in the second half. And at the start of the third quarter, they absolutely did. The Kings made the adjustment. Doug Christie made the adjustment. He came out. And it feels like every time the Kings kind of struggle a bit in a game, they go to a zone. A lot of times it's the 2-3 zone. And it just seems to work so well, because what it allowed the Kings to do was every time Maxey's going to get a screen, it's Monk and Fox at the top of the zone, so they can just switch it. And so that allows the Kings to not have to blitz Maxey. They were letting Oubre shoot. They were letting Edwards shoot. They were letting Yabusele try to take floaters and hook shots around the rim, and it led to inefficient offense for the Sixers and led to faster paced offense for the Kings. Defense leading to offense. And the offense, I mean, it was humming pretty much the entire game in terms of the ball movement and player movement, at least when Sabonis was in the game. And Keegan came out strong with just a quick 6 points, coming up with loose balls, coming up with offensive rebounds, going hard at the rim. Fox also had some nice takes to the rim. We got the Malik Monk to De'Aaron Fox alley-oop. Is it the last? Probably not, but I can't help but think that. And then Keon hit a 3 to go up 12. And so Kings started the quarter down 4, and all of a sudden they're up 12 because they go to this zone defense into offense, so much offense at the rim, and it felt like the Kings were going to run away with it. But then you had a couple of just missed open threes. These were wide open threes missed by Keegan, missed by Keon, that could have really, completely blown this game open and put the game away. But because they missed, then they're countered on the other end by the Sixers getting to the rim. Maxey had an and one. So the Sixers cut it back down to 7, and the Kings call a timeout. It was one of those moments where it didn't feel like a big deal at the time. You miss a couple open shots, you'll hit some open shots later, right? Right? You would think. And out of this timeout, Herter came in, hit a 3. And I'm like, whoa, Herter hit a 3. We're going to win, right? If Herter hits a 3, that means we win. But it felt like the Kings could never string together wide open 3-point makes, because Herter hits one and then Lyles immediately misses one. Keon, he had a little trouble guarding Tyrese Maxey and was fouling him and getting blown by a bit. And then Sabonis went out of the game. Sabonis went out of the game as I believe it was plus 13 at the time in his minutes. And they didn't bring Alex Len back in. They went with Lyles at the 5, so that's the right decision. But the spacing was still bad. You had guys crowding each other, not in the same spots. The offense, it just does not flow the same without Sabonis, and guys don't really know where they're supposed to be. And you kind of had DeMar kind of trying to take over some possessions. And then you had a few turnovers, including Fox trying to dribble in the middle of traffic, in the middle of the court with 3 guys around him in transition. The Sixers went to a little bit of a zone just for a few possessions, and it forced some turnovers. And then towards the end of that quarter, the Kings just missed threes. They generated some open looks. They definitely generated more open looks than they did when Alex Len was on the court. But they just missed them. And like I said, Keon missing these threes is just not normal. He was the most surprising one when he was missing all these wide open threes. And then you miss a 3, 4 guys get beat down the court by one Sixer, and DeMar flagrantly fouls him. And so it just ended the quarter on such a bad note. Such a bad note that Sabonis had to come back in at the start of the fourth. And so he was going to play the whole fourth and play 40 minutes for 2 straight games. He was a plus 13, and the Kings were down 2 to start the fourth quarter. He was out for 8 minutes, and the Kings were a minus 15 in those minutes. But then the offense just completely went away to start the fourth. Both Fox and DeMar were just missing some open looks from the mid-range. The Sixers started to be able to break down the Kings zone by just driving all the way to the rim, finding the gaps and getting inside. And the Kings were just missing jump shots, and they were kind of settling for jump shots. They weren't able to get to the rim. And obviously some of this is because the Sixers packed the paint. But there were definitely some moments of just settling. And some of that has to do with not being able to play with pace, not being able to find cross matches, not being able to get to the rim in transition because you can't get stops. So it's hard to play with pace when you also can't get stops. DeMar did hit a big corner 3, and then Keegan had a big block, and then Keegan missed a wide open 3. So again, it's like you can't string together these wide open 3s. And finally, the Kings got inside with a nice Fox drive to Keegan for a dunk, who had 5 dunks, which is pretty crazy. But then it kind of felt like the Kings started settling. Like Keegan just took a tough 3, and he went 0 for 5 for 3 in this game. And then the Kings just didn't match up. It wasn't really a transition moment. The Kings just didn't match up and gave up an open corner 3. That kind of felt like when the game was over, but then somehow it wasn't really over because somehow the Kings were still in it. Even with some moments like Keon and Keegan miscommunicated, let Maxey get to the rim for an easy floater, and Keon just couldn't hit a shot, but the Kings were still in it. Through Keegan dunks, through Sabonis offensive rebounds and getting after it on the glass and drawing loose ball fouls. And somehow the Kings were within 6 with plenty of time to go. And they come out of a timeout. And of course, the production on NBC Sports sucks. We missed 2 plays in this game because they weren't quick enough coming back from break, which is cool. So we missed it, but the Kings somehow got a steal. And they run the other way, and Monk sidestep 3 wide open, and he just missed it. And that's the shot where I was like, yeah, we're not winning this game. We've missed so many open shots from 3 in this fourth quarter, and you finally come up with a big steal, and you're only down 6, and you just miss a wide open 3. And it's Monk, who had been driving our offense for a lot of the game. And then you have Lowry kind of getting Monk on his hip, and the help defense inside just wasn't there. He got to the line. Keegan worked so hard to get one stop on Maxey, played some great defense, and then somehow Sabonis and DeMar can't come up with a rebound against one guy. I don't know how DeMar didn't get that free throw. It's just some bad rebounding. And then Monk just like throws the ball away. So it just kind of collapsed, you know. It really is as simple as you just hit some 3s and none of this happens. It truly is that simple. And it hurts because you're on this road trip where you're now 1-3 instead of 2-2, and now you're going into OKC and Minnesota. This was the game for you to get, and you just lost it because you couldn't hit a shot. But going over the individual performances, Sabonis played 40 minutes in this one, 13 points. You know, it wasn't a big scoring game for him. He went 1 for 2 from 3. Always got to point that out. But he had his 3rd straight triple-double with 14 rebounds and 11 assists, 4 turnovers, a lot of those early on. But it wasn't the scoring game for him because of how the Sixers were playing. But he allowed the Kings defense to look pretty. And it was a lot of assists. It was a lot of ball movement, a lot of player movement. It looked really good. And the results just weren't quite there. Malik Monk, he played 40 minutes as well. He had it going early on. Started missing some tougher shots later in the game, but he had 21 and 8. He had 3 turnovers as well. 8 for 18 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3. It was a solid game for him. He couldn't quite get that 2-man game with Sabonis going. And really what I mean by that is they couldn't get anything at the rim as much as they normally do because of how the Sixers were playing it. But he made some nice passes, made one really nice pass to Trey Lyles in the corner in that 2-man game. But Kings just couldn't knock down the shots. Fox played 35 minutes, 7 for 15 from the field, 19 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. He had a fine game. he as well just kind of didn't hit the threes that there's one corner three in that fourth quarter that I just expected to go down because that's like the exact time he normally hits that exact corner three, and it just went in and out. He had a tough one because he was just getting hounded by the Sixers and they were throwing bodies at him whenever he was with the bench lineups, but he also just couldn't quite knock down the shots in the fourth quarter that he needed to. DeMar, a little bit of the same. He went 7 for 17 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3. And I'll keep pointing out the 3-point shooting for DeMar because he just looks comfortable shooting the corner threes and knocking them down at a good percentage. So he shot 40% from 3, 19 points, but also not his best shooting game. And then you have Keegan, who went 8 for 15 from the field, but 8 for 10 from inside the 3-point arc, 0 for 5 from 3. He looks different, in this month of January, I would say. So aggressive going to the rim, but it's more in control than it's been before. Before, whenever he went to the rim, and I still do, I would get worried that he's going to commit an offensive foul or that he's going to just fly into someone and then just throw the ball up and turn it over or whatever. But he just looks more in control now. And he's shedding guys off of him without committing offensive fouls, without turning the ball over, while maintaining control of his body to be able to finish at the rim. And so him being able to contribute 17 points, 8 rebounds, he had 5 offensive rebounds, despite going 0 for 5 from 3, that's a very good game for him. I also don't know how he wasn't credited with a block. I feel like he got multiple blocks. The bench production really just wasn't there. I mean, I already talked about Alex Len. I already talked about Devin Carter. They combined for 7 minutes and weren't good. Keon, I talked about him too. Just he couldn't hit a 3. Defensively with Keon, when he's asked to guard Maxey, I feel like Maxey, in a way similar to Tyler Hero, not that they have similar play styles, but that I think Keegan's the better matchup than Keon. And it's so weird because Keegan's the bigger guy. He's slower on his feet, but he's just better at guarding these quicker guards. I think Keon, he isn't the best point of attack defender, just stay in front of one, quick guard. That's not really where he makes his impact defensively. So he gets exposed sometimes against guys like Tyrese Maxey. He's an above average one-on-one defender, point of attack defender, but he's not elite. Where he's elite is his ability to cause turnovers and get in the passing lanes and things like that. Also being able to recover and do his classic spin recoveries and recover and block shots inside. That's what he's good at. But when a guy like Maxey gets by him, he was having trouble not fouling him and staying in front of him. So I just think Keegan is the better matchup for a lot of these small, quicker guards like Maxey, like Hero. And then you have Trey Lyles. He had a really nice game, I thought. 4 points, 5 rebounds, 3 of them offensive. He was just getting after it underneath and didn't knock down his 1-3, but went 2 for 3 from the field. Thought it was just a really nice effort game from him. And then you had Kevin Huerter, 1 for 4 from 3, had 5 points. Didn't play all that well defensively. I actually did think he was pretty solid in the zone as a team defender, but that didn't make up for how bad he was one-on-one and how the Sixers searched him out in that first half defensively. The Kings' next game is against the Oklahoma City Thunder in Oklahoma City. That's a tough one. That's a game I don't, necessarily expect the Kings to come away with. But the game that the Kings played earlier against the Oklahoma City Thunder, they kept it close. They played well in the first half, but then in the second half, the Thunder just pulled away. Because despite the Kings playing really well in the first half, you have to be perfect against this team, and when you're playing well, you have to build a big lead, and the Kings haven't really been able to build many big leads lately. But I am, of course, going to be watching the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander matchup. And I was talking about Keon and who he's better at guarding. He hasn't been good guarding Shai. And, that's just tough because nobody really is. And Keegan's even struggled. But I think we'll see Keegan as the primary matchup early on. I'm sure Keon will get a shot. But this is a game where I think Sabonis is going to have to be dominant. And that's not getting post-ups. He's got to be careful of like this game, the Thunder sending bodies at him and stripping him inside, but he's got to be a dominant force on the boards inside. He can control the boards against this team, and so the Kings need to be able to attack the paint. but it has to come from the guards getting downhill and then Sabonis trying to create room inside and rebounding the basketball. So the Kings are going to need a big offensive rebounding game from Sabonis. Anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back to recap this game against the Thunder. And so I will see you guys then. Peace.